All right, welcome to Music Blueprint. My name is Gina Fontanella, and I am one of the co-founders of Music Blueprint. And this is our very first episode. Crazy. It's so crazy to me that it's finally happening. We've been talking and putting all the pieces together for over 3 years. I know personally, I've been thinking about it for over 5 years. And basically the whole concept of the company is to help musicians become full-time musicians. A lot of people out there just don't know how to make money with their art. And I was just constantly getting calls while I was on the road of being like, how did you do it? How did you tour full-time? How did you play 120 shows a year, travel 9 months out of the year, and make a full-time income? What were the steps? And anyways, then we just decided to make it a company. pretty simple. You get enough people asking, that's how it goes. So I'm just going to break down just common questions that musicians have. And I think the first question obviously is probably know a little bit more about me and how I started in music. So I'll just start there. It all kind of began for me with my family. Most of my family's very musical, with the exception of 2 that are tone deaf. Shout out Blake. And I just kind of developed into there. Then I grew up in church, singing in church and leading worship. Started dabbling in writing while I was in high school, and just really realized that you couldn't really fully connect with a song if you didn't write it yourself. And so I started honing in on that skill, then ended up going to school for music, which I then ended up graduating with a vocal performance and composition degree. And from there, spent some time in Nashville. And I had decided out of graduation that I wanted to tour. That's the thing that I loved. I love performing. Honestly, that's where my true heart is. Even more than being a songwriter, I just love the stage. And I was like, how can I do that full time? So I basically hustled my way to touring. I read a bunch of books, every online blog I can think of. Went through this program called the CMC, which kind of taught you how to put on a tour. And then I just put my nose to the ground and did it. I sent out hundreds of emails and tried to piece together a map line of where I would play shows at. And from there, just started picking up shows, and I would go on the road for 2-3 months. I'll be on the road, and then I'd come back to Nashville and just chill out because you kind of need the downtime. And yeah, then it just kind of got bigger and bigger. I first started out with only 75 shows. I think it was like 50 to 75 shows. And then it ended up, by the end of it, I was playing 120 shows a year. And the beauty about being in Nashville at the time was, and still to today, in Nashville, you're within a 10, honestly, actually it's less than that. I would say a 6 to 12 hour radius of 15 of the major music cities in the US. So it makes it really easy to tour because it's just a car drive away. So I would just hop in my Prius and kind of pick an area. I would go back to the areas that I knew I had a draw, but I would also go to some areas that I had nothing, just to try to build something. And then just slowly built into that. And then after 3 years, I realized I wanted to take all of that to the next level and just didn't have the connections to do so. I was never in town to meet anybody and hang out with people and build the relationship with people that would want to take you on the road. And so I realized, okay, I need to kind of step back a bit to step many steps forward. And so I moved back to LA, which is where I'm from, and started working in studios and working with more labels. And then that kind of developed, and yeah, now I'm working with a ton of labels. I'm about to go on tour. I think I'm hoping, I mean, after all this coronavirus stuff passes, I'm supposed to go on tour with Ultra and some big EDM festivals. And yeah, so it just kind of all started from there and then developed into something bigger. So, and some of my inspirations, I know it's different for a lot of people, but for me, most of my music is pop music. So, but it's pop is so broad. And mine really heavily was influenced by Paramore, Destiny's Child. Even my vocal style a bit was really inspired by Heart and like Frank Sinatra. A lot of times when you hear my voice, there's a lot of purity to it. Yeah. So anyways, I just want to get into a little bit too of how do you make money in the industry? What are the avenues? How do you do it? It seems so far to like just a distant thought to be able to make money with something that you love. And it's not. And I'm here to tell you it's not. I know a lot of people want to keep the secrets hush hush. But it really isn't difficult. It might be a little bit more difficult if you're not in a music city, if you're in the middle of bumfrick Wisconsin. Okay, yeah, you probably need to move somewhere, even just to Madison. Just move to Madison. But it's definitely not far-fetched to make a full-time income. You just need to figure out what your avenues are. And for Music Blueprint, we kind of started with 3 avenues just to break it down in what are the general things that musicians today are making money with, full-time incomes with. But there are honestly so many avenues of revenue. It is insane. You could literally go into the sync world and that has a bajillion different avenues on how to make money. You can go composition, you could go full top lines, you could do alternative rock top lines for indie films. Like there's just so many, but we kind of broke it down into 3 main categories, which were songwriting, touring, and teaching. And those are probably the 3 things that I would say most of my friends and most of my musician peeps are sticking to make money. And, starting with songwriting, that can be broken down into a few different categories. Some people are making money on the streaming side with songwriting. They're getting a bunch of streams, or they're just consistently putting out music and collectively it makes streams. I have this girl, Violet Skies, which she's amazing. You should check out her stuff. She's awesome. Really good friend of mine. She's now making a full-time income just because she's consistently releasing on Spotify. So her numbers, because she's kind of tapped into that algorithm, her numbers have consistently grown to where now it's a full-time income for her, which is crazy because she just came over here from the UK, got her visa, and signed with Cobalt. And she was really worried because her deal wasn't as, after you sign a publishing deal, you got to give some to your lawyer, you got to give some to here, and you're like, oh, frick, I'm left with like nothing. And so she was kind of worried coming out here. But she was consistently putting out songs, and then it ended up working out for her because she tapped into that algorithm. Another way of making money is on the songwriting side is just doing those online. I call them online dating for musicians. And it's basically you create a profile and you say, this is what I do. Here's my resume of the things that I've done. And then people see your profile, they listen to your songs, and they're like, I want you to write a song for me. And there's different platforms that do that. I would say one of the most notable ones would be Sound Better. Another one would be Nashville for Hire. There's a ton. And again, you gotta put in the work. You gotta create the profile. In the beginning, it's always slow. Always slow. I mean, I remember in the very beginning, and my rates were low too, because I was just starting out. I'm not going to charge people $500 when I'm a average songwriter. At that point, I was an average songwriter. And it started with just one song here every 3 months. And then it built into, I was getting 2 or 3 projects a month. And it ended up being a really steady income. Still to this day, it's a pretty steady income. I know things have slowed down a bit, again, because of coronavirus. But when I transitioned out of touring, I was really nervous. I was trying to figure out, how am I going to make money? All my money at that point, not all of it, but a good chunk of it, I would say 80% of it, was in touring. And I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to transition out of this? And right at that time, all of my online projects really picked up. So it transitioned nicely because I then still had a full-time income. So again, and focusing on the fact of, as musicians, it is not one revenue. You don't clock in 9 to 5, although there are jobs that do that. Cool. But typically, what I have found is it's multiple avenues of revenue. You're pulling from teaching some kids how to play guitar. Then you're pulling from, somebody just picked up one of my songs and I made X amount off of it. Oh, and I'm also during the week playing 3 shows a week at a restaurant to consistently make income. You know what I mean? It's collectively doing all of these things, which, for some people, if you're an artist, that basically is just funding your projects for your artistry stuff so that you can make your artist platform pop off, right? But for other people, there's tons of people that I love just playing music. I just love singing. I don't want to be an artist, and I love music, but I don't, where do I find my place if I don't want to be Katy Perry, or I just want to sing? There's a place for that. So anyways, going back to songwriting, there's a lot of different things. Again, there's a lot of times I get paid for just coming in to a session, they pay my day rate, and I'm like, cool, however many songs we do in the day is however many songs we do in the day. But I just made $500 or $600 for that day. So again, there's a lot of different things that you can do with songwriting, and we're going to kind of dive into that. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of each category. There's a whole program that we've created that you can be a part of, which will have a link and all of that stuff, where we almost have it. We have all the videos and all the content together. We're just trying to figure out which platform would work best for everybody and what's the easiest for you guys to go through the different courses. So definitely keep your eye out for that. Moving on to teaching. Teaching's a little bit more straightforward. It's about your clientele, right? And sometimes you can start with working at a studio that already has a built-in clientele, and you can kind of tap into that. And it can get a little hairy if you want to leave, because if you take your clientele with you, that's a little bit of a stab in the back. So I would say more, if you're working with the studio, try to build your own clientele on the side outside of the studio. And then once you build that up to the magnitude that you want it at, then you can step aside from working at the studio. I know my girl Camber, which again, you could check out her music. She's amazing. She's also in a band called Ravener, I believe. And she made her full-time income teaching. She's an amazing keys player. Amazing keys player. And she had a full clientele working at a studio. And that was her consistent income, while on the weekends she would go out and tour with her band. And she would go to North Carolina because she was in Nashville too. So there's definitely a way to do it. But for teachers, you got to find the people. That's the hardest. So there's different ways to do that, but you really got to put yourself out there. Everything with music, you have to really put yourself out there. And, for some of my introverted folks, I know that's really difficult. You're like, I just want to bury myself in my room and not go outside. Which, you know what? The coronavirus is working to your favor, right? But for teachers, you really got to put yourself out there. You got to go to the open mics. You know, you hear somebody sing, you hear somebody play guitar, piano, whatever, even if it's like trumpet. And, you know, you approach those people and you say, hey, man, I'd love to give you like a first intro lesson. I don't know if you're interested in vocal lessons or not, but I'm new to town. I'm trying to connect with people, and I'd love to give you a free intro session. Cool. Most people, they're like, they don't pay for vocal lessons or any kind of lesson is because they don't have the money to do it. And now you just kind of broke ground, and you never know if somebody's going to be like, oh my God, I had this lesson with so-and-so. It was so great. I wish I had the money to do it. But if you have the money to do it, you should. And then you kind of start the word of mouth thing around town. So again, there's so many options, so many options for teachers, but it's really, I kind of believe it's really about putting yourself out there and, you know, showing up to a school, contacting all the schools in your area and just say, hey, can I pop in once a week? And, you know, even if it's just, let me help you grade papers for your music class, whatever. Offer your time, because that's the only thing that you have in the beginning is time. And what people are always trying to save on is time, because that's the one thing you can't get back. And then as you're working in the music class, helping the music department, there's gonna be kids that want lessons. And you could say, hey, this is what I charge. And, you know, if you're in a certain area, you know, income levels change in different areas of town and all of that stuff. So you might have to regulate all of that. But again, you're collectively making your income so that you can be a full-time musician. And you're doing what you love. So then moving on to touring. Touring is a beast. It is such a beast. You wear so many hats when you go on the road. And you wear a lot of hats as a musician because you're an entrepreneur, basically. Not basically. That is what you are. And that means that you're your own boss and the buck stops with you. And sometimes this what I'm about to say next sometimes gets me in trouble because people don't like the honest truth about how to be a successful musician. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop. Literally from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I am working on my craft. I'm working on making money. I'm working on my business. I'm working on art to be a part of my business, to make money. It's nonstop. And you can ask, I would love for people to just DM some of my family members and people that are closest to me. They will tell you how hard I work. I mean, right now, just looking at what I'm doing currently. I just got a pretty big deal with an EDM label. They took, I think right now they have 8 of my songs, 8 of my top lines. Which I had to get together the acapellas. I had to contact everybody who wrote with me on the songs, get everything arranged for the deals. Then I had to get split sheets together and master split sheets together. Then I had to have the label send me the marketing plan so I could send it to all the different people, which, I mean, there's 20, 25 people collectively on all these tracks. Then on top of that, they sent me producer packs of songs that their producers already like and that they wanted me to write a top line to. So I'm managing the songs that's already happening. Then I do another 4 songs off of those packs, which means having sessions every day. Even while coronavirus is going on, I'm still doing a Zoom call, FaceTime, all of that. And then on top of that, I start a music company called Music Blueprint, which is maintaining a ton of content. I had to get courses together, all of that. It's just, and that's only like the main things. That doesn't include my YouTube channel and all the content I create for my artist pages and music that I'm releasing myself as my artist and as an artist and all of these different things. You're wearing so many hats. You're being your manager, your booker, your everything. And there's, honestly, most of the time, there's nobody to rely on but you. Now, if you're in a band scenario, that's where things get a lot better, is because you can kind of dish those things out. But when you're just by yourself and you're a solo artist, you got to understand, you got to hustle. Because in this business, as much as it's about talent, it's not about talent at all. I would say 10% of it is about talent. Really, it's like 70% who you know, 20% hard work and dedication, and 10% talent. There's always somebody better than you. Always. And that's what I think a lot of times when you're in the beginning, you don't think that. You think, well, I can sing circles around 80, 90% of people. Why wouldn't somebody pick me? And this is the hard part about being in a business that is about art. You think that your art speaks for you, and it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes it does. But in terms of business, it doesn't always speak for you. They'll pick a song that's not as good as yours just because they know that financially they're going to make more money. And somebody told me this, and this kind of rocked my world a bit. They were talking about Sony, and I believe Beyonce is signed to Sony. And what he said, he was like, to Sony, even Beyonce is technically expendable. Because the controller that they make for PlayStations makes them more money than Beyonce does. The plug, the power strip that goes into your wall that charges 6 different things makes more money than Beyonce does for Sony. So you got to keep in perspective, this is a business. And how you run your business is how you're going to be successful in it. And you have to kind of separate your art from the business. When somebody doesn't take a risk on your art or somebody doesn't like your art, that doesn't mean that they don't like you. It's 2 completely separate things. You have to compartmentalize. Just because they don't like a song doesn't mean they don't like you as a person. It's more just business. It's kind of like what Michael Jackson was saying. It's just business. Like, it is. Michael Jackson bought out all of the Beatles catalog, owns the Beatles catalog, and the Beatles were trying to buy it, and they were friends of Michael Jackson, and they were like, dude, just let us buy it for $20 million. It's our catalog, it's our songs. Let us buy it. And he goes, no, I think I'm going to buy it. It's just business. It's like, that's a little extreme. That's an extreme example. But again, you have to separate your art from the business side and recognize, okay, I can sing better than Rihanna, but Rihanna is a vibe. Rihanna has the connects. Rihanna has the hustle. Like, you know what I mean? There's always somebody that's more talented than you. There's always someone that can outwork you, and you just gotta put your nose to the ground and just be like, I'm putting blinders on. I'm plugging my ears, positive or negative, because sometimes positive influences can get you in trouble too, because then it starts building your ego up, and then you start getting into trouble too. But plug in your ears, covering your eyes, put your nose to the ground, and just be like, I'm going to do this come hell or high water. And that's it. And you start making those connects, and slowly but surely things start coming in, money starts coming in, and it just ends up working out like that. But continuing on with touring, it's a beast, and it's all about planning. everything about it is about planning. And if you're not a good planner, you might need to bring somebody else on board, because it is about planning in advance and getting all of those ducks in a row. Because the first thing you have to do is you have to contact, I mean, I would send 100 to 300 emails for just a 3-month tour to get, I don't know, like 40, 45 shows, 40 to 50 shows. And you getting 30% back of those emails was like, whoa, amazing. But it's hard. You got to get all the emails together. You got to find out, who you're emailing, what date you're emailing, and checking their calendar to make sure you're not asking about a date that a screamo band is playing on, which you're obviously not going to go well with, or maybe you are going to go well with. You have to do a bunch of research before you can even send that email, because if you just start sending emails out and you're like, hey, I want to do this date, and somebody's like, did they even check my calendar? That's a screamo band. I just listened to this girl's song. It's like folk pop. Like, that's not going to go well. And they'll just not answer because you didn't even take the time to check the information that they already have. So, you have to do that background, then send all the emails out. And a lot of times while I was on the road touring and playing shows, I was booking the next leg of my tour. So I was on the road for 2 or 3 months, but literally a month and a half in, I was already booking for the next tour, because that was 3 months away, because you have to book everything 3 months in advance. So you really got to be on top of your calendar. You got to be on top of all the different emails coming in, because Mike from, I don't know, Hotel Cafe will be messaging you, but then Mike from the Peppermint Club will be messaging you, and you'll get all confused because you're like, wait, which Mike is this? Like, I mean, it seems like every booker is named like Mike or Dan, I swear. So you got to just keep all of that, in check. Then on top of doing that, you got to prepare for your shows. You got to practice. You got to be like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm practicing my set, or the band is practicing, and you got to make sure, hey, can everybody practice on Monday, and getting all of that together, because if during the day you're booking shows, or if you just have a part-time job or something, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of scheduling. You got to get it down to the minute detail to get everything in. Then while you're on the road, it's a little freer, you know what I mean? Because your only focus is to play a show. But with that, you got to kind of find a schedule within it, or you're going to go crazy, because you're in a car for hours and hours on end. If you're eating crappy, you're drinking every night, you know what I mean? It's like you just start getting like exhausted, because tour is already exhausted. With the traveling alone, you're already exhausted. And so you got to kind of do all the things that you can to keep your body right, so that you don't kind of let it get to you at the end of the day. And even the mental state of it, for me, I was on my own. I did the whole touring thing, just me and my Prius. So I was driving, 8, 12 hours a day, you know what I mean? And then playing a show that night. And a lot of times I would set it up to where I could play a few shows in whatever city I was in, even if it was just within 30 minutes. So I was just driving 30 minutes. But still, once a week, you're driving. God, I think one time I drove from, this one was crazy though. This was not typical, but I drove Tulsa to Tahoe straight, which is 25 and a half hours. I did it by myself. I told myself after I did that, I would never do that again. I was like seeing stuff in the road. I mean, it was crazy, but I didn't have an option. I, at the time, was in a long distance relationship, and they lived in Tulsa, and it was like, we never got to see each other. So I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And then I was like, I can't wait anymore. I have to go. So I drove 25 and a half hours straight. And I'm telling you, I did not stop. I didn't even sit at a restaurant. I think I saw a Panda Express and stopped there because I was like, this is the best food I'll see on Highway 40. And I was like, I gotta stop. So I stopped, and there was a little bit of a line, and that was like 15 minutes. And then I got back in my car and drove. It was crazy. But you're doing drives like this, and most of the time you can split it with somebody. But you're exhausted. I got to Tahoe. I slept 3 hours and played a show at 10 o'clock that night and went from 10 to 1:30 in the morning. So my voice was wrecked because I was in the car for that long, which meant just air just blasting into my face and drying out my vocal cords. And you never seem to drink enough water while you're on the road because you're not really moving. You don't really think about it. And so then I get there and my voice is dried out, and then I'm tired because I haven't slept. It was rough, you know what I mean? And some of those shows are just rough, and you just gotta kind of push through it. But it's a beast. Touring is a beast. So anyways, I kind of dived into a little bit about what Music Blueprint is about. We're going to be bringing people on to interview on the business side, on the artistry side. I've been doing this for a really, really long time. It feels like a lot longer than what it is, because I started in music and just started in the music culture really young. But honestly, I've been hustling and at this level probably for close to a decade now. And we're definitely going to bring some people on that just have a lot of knowledge about the industry and can really start helping all of you guys make money and start tapping into a huge wealth that is in the music industry. So definitely stay tuned. I think what we're going to do is release a podcast and video every Monday. And you guys can, if you want to, ask some questions below. Ask some questions in the comments. We'd love to answer them. We'll go through them and just help you guys be successful in making money with your art. So anyways, we'll see you guys next week, and have a good day.